Rhea woke to sunlight filtering through velvet drapes, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar luxury surrounding her. For a heartbeat, panic surged. Was this another experimental facility disguised as something else? But no. The Thornvale labs had been clinically sterile, all white walls and metal surfaces. This room, with its rich blues and polished wood, felt different, ancient, almost magical. She sat up slowly, her body protesting with dull aches that suggested she'd been running for longer than she remembered. The nightgown she wore wasn't her own. Someone had changed her clothes while she slept. The realization sent a fresh wave of vulnerability through her. Where am I? And who brought me here? A gentle knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Before she could respond, the door opened and a small, silver-haired woman entered carrying a tray. "Ah, you're awake," the woman said, her voice warm and grandmotherly, despite the assessing sharpness in her dark eyes. "I brought breakfast and fresh clothes." Rhea pulled the blankets higher instinctively. "Who are you?" "Where am I?" "My name is Mara," the woman replied, setting the tray on a nearby table. "As for where you are, you're safe, child. That's what matters for now." Rhea's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "That's not an answer." A smile flickered across Mara's weathered face. "No, it's not. But it's all I'm permitted to give until the Alpha speaks with you." The Alpha? The term triggered nothing in Rhea's memory, which remained frustratingly blank beyond her name and fragments of running through a forest. "He found you at our borders last night," Mara explained, laying out a simple dress of soft grey fabric on the bed. "You were unconscious. He brought you here to recover." Rhea's hand moved instinctively to her shoulder, finding the mark hidden beneath the nightgown's fabric. It felt warm to the touch, almost pulsing. "Did he see me when I was unconscious?" Understanding crossed Mara's face. "I changed your clothes, child, not him. The Alpha may be many things, but improper isn't one of them." Some of the tension left Rhea's shoulders. "When can I leave?" "That's for the Alpha to decide." Mara gestured to the tray as she walked out the room. "Eat, regain your strength. He'll see you soon enough." After Mara departed, Rhea explored the room more thoroughly. The door was unlocked but guarded. She could hear two men conversing quietly outside. The windows opened onto a balcony with a dizzying drop to the courtyard below. Too high for any escape attempt. Beautiful but secure. A velvet prison. The breakfast, fresh bread, cheese and fruit reminded her body of its hunger. As she ate, fragments of memory surfaced. Sterile rooms, needles, clinical voices discussing her unique physiology. But the details remained frustratingly elusive, as if looking at her past through frosted glass. She knew her name was Rhea. She remembered the sensation of running through forest undergrowth, the panic of pursuit. But before that, a vast emptiness where her life should have been. After eating, she changed into the grey dress Mara had left. It fit surprisingly well, the fabric soft against her skin. She was just finishing braiding her dark hair when another knock came at the door, firmer this time, more commanding. "Come in," she called, bracing herself. The man who entered filled the doorway with his presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with blonde hair and striking golden eyes. He carried himself with the absolute authority of someone accustomed to command. Despite his formal clothing, a dark shirt and tailored pants, there was something untamed about him, as if a wilder nature lurked just beneath the surface. "I'm Kael Stormpelt," he said, his voice a deep baritone that seemed to resonate in the stone walls. "Alpha of the Stormpelt Pack. You're in my territory now." Pack? The word triggered nothing in Rhea's blank memory. Instead of showing the fear or deference he clearly expected, she met his gaze directly. "I'm Rhea. At least I think that's my name." "It's the only one I remember." Something like surprise flickered in his golden eyes. Humans, she would later learn, rarely met an Alpha's gaze so directly. "You don't remember how you came to be at our borders?" he asked, moving further into the room with a predator's fluid grace. "No." She gestured vaguely at her head. "My memory is mostly gone. I remember running through the forest. I remember being afraid. But before that, nothing clear." Kael's expression remained unreadable, but she sensed his disappointment. "Do you remember the mark on your shoulder? How you got it?" Her hand moved instinctively to cover the spot, though the mark was hidden beneath the dress. "You saw it." "I did." He took a step closer, his presence somehow filling more space than his physical body occupied. "It glowed when I found you. It's been there as long as I can remember," she replied honestly, which admittedly isn't saying much right now. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Rhea felt as if she were being assessed, measured against some standard she couldn't comprehend. "You're not afraid," Kael finally observed, his tone suggesting this was unusual. "Should I be?" She managed a small, defiant smile. "I woke up in a beautiful room, was given food and clothing, and haven't been harmed. Fear seems premature." A bark of surprised laughter escaped him. "Most humans would be terrified in your position. Most humans probably remember what a human is supposed to act like," she countered. "I'm working with limited information here." Something shifted in his expression, a softening around the eyes, perhaps. "Fair point." Rhea took a breath, choosing her next words carefully. "Are you going to tell me what this place is? Or why my mark interests you? Or why there are guards outside my door if I'm not a prisoner?" "This is Ravengarde," Kael explained, moving to the window and gesturing at the view beyond. "A hidden territory, protected by ancient magic. Humans don't typically find their way here." Through the window, Rhea could see an expansive courtyard below, surrounded by stone buildings that formed a formidable castle complex. Beyond that stretched forests and mountains, the landscape wild and untamed. "And you? You're not human." The question felt ridiculous as she asked it, but something in her knew it was the right one. Kael turned to face her, his expression deadly serious. "No, I am Werewolf. Alpha of the western territories of Ravengarde." Werewolf. The word should have shocked her, should have triggered disbelief. Instead, it settled into her mind like a puzzle piece finding its home. "And the eastern territories?" "Vampires," he replied, watching her reaction carefully. Rhea nodded slowly, processing this information with a calmness that surprised even her. "And the guards?" "Are there to protect you as much as to contain you," Kael said. "Until I know why the barrier let you through. While you bear that mark, you remain an unknown factor. Ravengarde has enemies. These enemies, they're the ones I was running from?" "Perhaps." Kael stared into her eyes, studying her. "There's a group of humans called the Thornvale Hunters, who've been crossing our borders more frequently lately. They harvest vampire blood and werewolf parts for experiments." The name Thornvale triggered something, a flash of white walls, a sign glimpsed through trees as she fled. But the memory slipped away before she could grasp it fully. "I don't think I'm a hunter," she said slowly. "But Thornvale, the name seems familiar." Kael's gaze sharpened. "In what way?" "I don't know." Frustration colored her voice. "It's like trying to remember a dream after waking. I can feel it there, but I can't see it clearly." A knock at the door interrupted them. Dorian entered, his expression tense. "Alpha," he said with a respectful nod to Kael. "The council has assembled. They're waiting for you to address them about our guest." Kael nodded. "I'll be there shortly." Dorian's assessing gaze moved to Rhea, his eyes lingering on her shoulder where the mark lay hidden. "Should I arrange for memory suppression preparations?" "No," Kael replied firmly. "Not yet." The tension in the room shifted subtly. Rhea sensed an unspoken disagreement between the two men. "Memory suppression?" she asked sharply. "What does that mean?" "Standard procedure for humans who accidentally cross our borders," Kael explained. "We remove memories of Ravengarde before returning them to human territories." "You're not touching my memories," Rhea said fiercely. "I have few enough as it is." A ghost of a smile touched Kael's lips. "As I said, not yet. But eventually, we'll need to decide what to do with you. I should have a say in that decision," she insisted. Dorian made a sound that might have been a quickly suppressed laugh. Kael shot him a warning glance and they made to leave. "Rest. Recover your strength," he said to Rhea as they reached the door. "We'll speak again after I meet with the council." After they departed, Rhea returned to the window, watching the bustling activity in the courtyard below. Figures moved with inhuman grace and speed, werewolves in human form, she presumed. The reality of her situation began to sink in. She was a human amnesiac in a hidden supernatural realm, bearing a mark of unknown significance, with no clear memory of how she'd arrived or what dangers she'd fled. And yet, something about this place felt strangely familiar. Not the castle specifically, but the energy of Ravengarde itself, as if some part of her recognized it as home. The council chamber of the Stormpelt pack occupied the highest level of the castle's central tower, its circular design allowing all members equal position around the ancient oak table. Tall windows offered commanding views of the territory in all directions, a reminder of the pack's responsibility to protect what lay beyond. 12 council members waited as Kael entered, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. Dorian took his place at Kael's right hand as the Alpha seated himself in the carved chair that had belonged to Stormpelt leaders for generations. "I know you've all heard rumors," Kael began without preamble. "Yes, a human woman crossed our borders last night. Yes, I've granted her sanctuary rather than following protocol." Murmurs rippled around the table. Astrilda, the pack's elderly priestess, leaned forward, her gnarled hands folding together. "Tell them what you told me, Alpha, about the mark." Kael nodded. The woman bears a mark on her shoulder, circular, with patterns that seem to shift when viewed directly. It glows with its own light. He paused, meeting each council member's gaze. "I've seen this symbol before, in the ancient texts of the first binding." Gasps and whispers erupted around the table. The first binding was legendary, the ritual that had created Ravengarde's protective barrier and sealed away Vorin, the Ebon tyrant, centuries ago. "You believe she's connected to the Oracle?" Elder Niven, oldest among the council, asked incredulously. "I don't know," Kael admitted, "but my wolf recognizes something in her. Something important. The Vampire King has already demanded her surrender," Dorian added, his tone neutral despite the gravity of the news. "He seems to believe the mark has significance to vampire history." "Of course he does," growled Vanna, a battle-scarred council member known for her distrust of vampires. Lucien Nightshade was there during the first binding. If anyone would recognize the seal, it would be him. Kael's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "The legends say Lucien loved the Oracle," Astrilda explained quietly. "That he was present when she sacrificed herself to create the seal. If this woman bears the same mark, then Lucien will stop at nothing to claim her," Vanna finished. Dorian stood up and cleared his throat, moving to the other table across. "There's another concern. Our scouts report increased activity from Thornvale hunters near our eastern border. They've been using some kind of artifact to temporarily breach our barrier." Dorian explained, spreading a map across the table. "This woman could be connected to them. A scout, perhaps, or an escaped experiment. Either way, we should proceed with caution." Kael leaned back, considering. "Double the border patrols. I want to know if any more Thornvale hunters attempt to cross. And prepare for Elder Tharok's burial ceremony at sunset." "The woman will attend with me." Shocked whispers erupted around the table. "You would bring a human to Tharok's passing?" Elder Nevin asked, clearly scandalized. "If she bears the Oracle's mark, she should witness our customs," Kael replied firmly. "And it will give me a chance to observe her reactions." Sunset painted Ravengarde's forests in gold and crimson as Rhea followed Kael across the castle grounds. The dress Mara had provided earlier had been replaced with a simple black gown, appropriate for the solemn ceremony ahead. Elder Tharok's death wasn't unexpected, Kael explained, as they walked a winding path through gardens that seemed wilder than human sensibilities would permit. He was the oldest member of our council, respected for his wisdom and strength. "How old was he?" Rhea asked. Noting how pack members they passed bowed their heads respectfully to Kael while casting curious, sometimes hostile glances her way. "In human years, 247, Kael replied. Rhea nearly stumbled. "That's impossible." A rare smile touched Kael's lips. For humans, perhaps. Werewolves who reach their full potential can live twice that long. Vampires even longer. They reached a clearing where dozens of pack members had already gathered. At its center stood a raised stone platform, where an elderly man's body lay draped in silver-gray furs. Torches encircled the clearing, their flames dancing in the growing twilight. Kael guided Rhea to a position near the front, ignoring the murmurs their arrival caused. Dorian appeared at Kael's side, his expression carefully neutral despite the tension. Rhea could sense radiating from him. "Everything is prepared, Alpha," he reported quietly. "Thank you, Dorian." Kael nodded toward the stone platform. "Begin when ready." As darkness fell completely, Astrilda stepped forward, her aged frame somehow commanding, despite her diminutive stature. She raised gnarled hands toward the emerging stars and began to chant in a language Rhea didn't recognize. And yet, something about the cadence felt familiar, as if she'd heard it before. Without thinking, Rhea closed her eyes, her lips silently forming words she couldn't possibly know, but somehow did. Beside her, Kael stiffened, his keen eyes catching the movement of her lips. She opened her eyes to find him watching her intently, a question in his gaze that she couldn't answer. Pack members began to approach the platform one by one, each placing a small token beside Elder Tharok's body. Flowers, carved stones, small personal items. When all had paid their respects, Astrilda raised her hands once more. The torches flared brighter, and 4 strong warriors lifted the platform. The procession moved deeper into the forest, following a path illuminated only by torchlight. They arrived at a cave entrance, its mouth wide enough to admit the platform and bearers. Inside, the cave opened into a vast chamber where previous generations of Paki members had been laid to rest. As Elder Tharok's body was placed in an alcove carved from living stone, the pack began to sing. The melody started low, almost a growl, before rising in harmony that sent chills down Rhea's spine. Again, without understanding how, she found herself knowing the melody, feeling it resonate within her. Kael's hand suddenly caught hers, his grip warm and strong. He squeezed once, warning or reassurance she couldn't tell before releasing her. When the ceremony concluded, pack members filed past Kael, offering formal condolences to their alpha. Some deliberately ignored Rhea, while others cast her curious glances. One child, no more than 6 years old, stopped directly in front of her. "You smell different," the boy announced with a child's blunt honesty. "But nice, like old books and lightning." Before Rhea could respond, the child's mother hurried forward, pulling him away with a nervous glance at Kael. "Forgive him, Alpha. Children speak without thinking." "No harm done," Kael replied, his tone gentler than Rhea had yet heard from him. "Thank you, Alpha." The mother bowed as she pulled the boy away. "Fenris, and I told you to look after your brother." She turned towards another young wolf who seemed to be the child's elder brother. As they walked back toward the castle, the moon rising full and bright above the forest, Rhea broke their companionable silence. "Thank you for allowing me to attend. It was beautiful in its way." Kael nodded. "Death is not an ending for us, merely a transformation. The rock spirit remains with the pack, guiding those who listen." "Is that what your priestess was calling to?" "Spirits?" His golden eyes narrowed slightly. "You recognize the ritual language." It wasn't a question, but Rhea answered anyway. Not consciously, but it felt familiar, like something I've heard in a dream. They had reached the castle entrance when Dorian appeared, his expression tense. "Alpha, a message from the Eastern Territories." Kael took the sealed parchment, breaking it open with a sharp flick of his claw. Transformed just for that purpose, Rhea noted with fascination. His expression darkened as he read. "Lucien is sending an emissary, officially to facilitate diplomatic discussion regarding the human arrival." But we both know what he really wants. "Information about the mark," Rhea guessed. Both men looked at her, surprise evident in their expressions. "Yes," Kael confirmed. "When will this emissary arrive?" Dorian asked. "In 2 days at sundown." Kael folded the message, his jaw tight. "Inform the guards to prepare suitable accommodations. and double the patrol around the eastern approach. Dorian nodded and departed, leaving Rhea alone with Kael in the torchlit entrance hall. "Am I in danger from this vampire emissary?" she asked directly. "Not while you're under my protection," Kael assured her, his voice dropping to a growl that seemed more wolf than man. "But it would be wise to remain close to me during their visit." "I still have guards outside my door," Rhea pointed out. "I'm not exactly free to wander." Something shifted in Kael's expression. A decision made. "The guards will remain, but you're free to explore the castle grounds during daylight hours. A guide will accompany you." "Why the change of heart?" "Because my wolf trusts you," he said simply, "even if I'm not yet convinced." They had reached the door to her chambers. Rhea paused, gathering her courage. "The mark on my shoulder, what does it mean to you?" "To the Vampire King." Kael studied her for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "It resembles an ancient seal, one used centuries ago during a ritual known as the First Binding. That seal contains power that once saved Ravengarde from destruction, but at great cost." "What cost?" "A life. The life of a human woman named Nixara, who sacrificed herself to seal away a great evil." His eyes fixed on Rhea's shoulder, where the mark lay hidden beneath her gown. "Lucien Nightshade loved her, by all accounts. If your mark is connected to that seal, then he'll want to know why," Rhea finished softly. "Get some rest," Kael said, his tone gentler than before. "Tomorrow brings new challenges." After he left, Rhea stood by the window, watching the full moon illuminate Ravengarde's wild landscape. She placed her hand over her shoulder, feeling the warmth of the mark beneath the fabric. "Why me?" she whispered to the empty room. "What am I supposed to remember?" No answer came except the whisper of wind through the ancient trees beyond her window. Somewhere in the distance a wolf howled, whether one of the pack in animal form or a natural wolf, she couldn't tell. Either way, the sound stirred something deep within her, a longing for something just beyond memory's reach. Later, as she drifted towards sleep, a voice whispered at the edges of her consciousness, "Remember the blood moon. Remember the seal. We are home now, child of my line." Rhea's eyes flew open, but her room remained empty. The voice had been inside her head, or perhaps a dream already fading. Yet the sense of another presence lingered, watching from within rather than without. Not threatening, but waiting, patient after centuries of silence. Outside her door, the guards shifted position, unaware that the woman they protected was no longer alone in her body. Something ancient had awakened, called forth by Ravengarde's magic and the blood moon's glow. And it had plans of its own.
Next on Ravengarde Chronicles, The Awakening. Rhea is haunted by a dream, an intimate, sensual entanglement with Kael, and a crimson-eyed stranger whose touch leaves her trembling. Is it just fantasy or a glimpse of something more? In the Vampire Kingdom, a crisis brews, one that threatens to unravel the delicate balance between predator and prey, and expose secrets long buried beneath blood and politics. Back in Kael's territory, a charged moment explodes into passion. One kiss ignites something primal, something dangerous, leaving Kael on the edge of losing control, and revealing that Rhea's mark may be more than symbolic. But sleep brings no peace. Rhea is thrust into a vision of a scorched battlefield, strewn with the fallen werewolves and vampires alike. Among them lie Kael and the crimson-eyed stranger, broken and dying. A shadow watches from the edge, ancient and malevolent, and when it speaks, it calls her Oracle.
Desire rises. Instincts clash. Fate tightens its grip. And the storm has only just begun.